Okay, so hopefully you guys can see me. Hopefully you can hear me. Let me know if I am live. If you're here, I'm so glad you're here. We're going to be talking about job brand versus your recruitment or personal brand. I'm curious, which one do you think is more important? If you got a really hard to fill position or you're trying to get a message out there, what's easier for you, do you think? Which one is more valuable for you to get more information out about your specific job or perhaps your service offerings in general in terms of what types of positions overall you work with, and then perhaps bringing those candidates in and then finding the best place for them. So I'm curious as to where you are in that instance. Now, as you're signing in, I want you to let me know where you're signing in from. Let me know what you're recruiting for. What is the thing and if you're not recruiting, what is it? What kind of message would you like to portray out to the world? And I might be able to help you. I'm going to help compare the different ad platforms that are out there that can help you to amplify your message. You're probably already using a lot of these platforms yourself right now, but just on an organic basis, which is great. I want to encourage you to do that. Keep doing your organic growth. Posting material that is valuable to your audience, and that is definitely going to help you, whether you're a recruiter or you're in some other field. Now, I've got the recruiter mindset because that's the business I've been in for years now, but certainly a lot of things I share with you will be able to translate across the board. Hi, Charlene. So Charlene's here. So welcome, Charlene. Appreciate you being here. Thanks for your support. Okay, so since you're here first and you're first to comment, if there's something particular you want me to focus more on in the discussion, just let me know, and I'd be more than happy to do that, okay? So these are some of the main platforms I'm going to talk about today and then some of the differences. Now, I'm going to make an assumption here. The assumption that I'm going to make is that you're going to be using video. You're going to be using video in order to portray your message. And by the way, anybody who's here, I want you to please connect with each other if you haven't already. Follow the folks who are on here. The folks who are actively commenting, they already get it. That is definitely a big part of what it's all about on this platform, and that's connecting with each other. So thank you for being here, and be sure to connect with each other. Oh, we got Robert's here. Hey, Robert, welcome. Okay. So one of the things I want to mention here, and that's whether they like or comment, feel free and connect with each other. If we're using video, one of the things I'm going to suggest is think about what type of videos you're going to be putting out there. Now, if you're going to be putting more promotional videos, you want to definitely push out to a target audience, which if you're a recruiter, you are definitely going to be looking at a targeted audience. And even if you're in some type of other business, you would be doing that, because if you're not targeted, you're going to just spend tons of money and not have much to show for it, because you're going to be putting your ads in front of a bunch of people who it doesn't have relevance for them. And so you're going to be paying for that real estate, so to speak. So I'm going to back it up for 1 second here. Just so it makes total sense to us all here, is that on either of these sites, whether it's Google or YouTube, Google represents over 1 million websites in the United States in terms of being able to have your ads placed on those sites. Of course, they also own YouTube. That's their biggest property that they can own outside of their search engine. Then you've got LinkedIn, which is another big one. And you also have the Facebook world. Facebook is going to get you in front of folks who are using Facebook platform, Instagram, as well as the Facebook Messenger and Instagram messengers. So you're going to be able to really reach a wide cross section of people with these 3 platforms. Those are the ones I'm going to focus on the most. And I'll give you some numbers here. Not only is Google number 1, but they're just number 1 by far. And of course, YouTube is part of that. But if you were to guess, how much traffic does Google get from mobile devices? If you had to guess, I'm curious. Those are the comments. If you had to guess, what percentage of users use Google from, let's say, a mobile device, like a tablet or a phone, versus a desktop? I'm curious. What do you guys think? Hey, Joanne. Joanne's here too. And Robert has a good position. I'm going to answer that. That's a great question, Robert. I'm going to answer that in a second. So I'd love to hear guesses on this. But as far as Google is concerned, you're going to be able to get in front of the widest cross section of demographics of any platform here. LinkedIn is not, they can't come close to what Google. To give you and just kind of give you an idea, there's about 28 million people who live in the United States. You're going to be able to actually get in front of roughly, let's see, any guesses yet? Oh, Charlene says 97%. I like that. That's a good guess. You're going to be able to get in front of roughly about 90+% of the U.S. population with Google YouTube because their ad platform is so wide. Whereas on, for instance, LinkedIn has probably getting close to 1 billion users, something like that. It's very high. Maybe it's 700 or 800 million. But they only have about not even 200 million in the United States. I want to say it's around 100 and some odd million, maybe 175 million. But out of those 175 million, the last time I looked at a report, only about 66 million actually look at their profiles once a month. They log in once a month. So 60 some odd million versus you're talking about access to about 300 million people on the Google and YouTube platform. YouTube is not just for young people. All ages go on YouTube. I'm just curious, how many on here who are watching right now, whether you're watching the replay or live, how many on this program actually use YouTube or have used YouTube in the past month? I'm curious. How many have watched a YouTube video in the past month? I'm curious. I bet you most everybody has. And if you haven't, you're on other websites which I have the Google platform. And I see Charlene is on here. If I'm not mistaken, that's part of your business. You help with websites, right? So when you're doing your websites with your clients, you're probably very familiar with this, that with Google, with just adding a little bit of code to a website, whatever website you own could actually be open for the Google platform. The program's called AdSense, and you can basically make money by having Google ads on your site. Okay, so with this site, it's so accessible that over 1 million websites in the United States have this. So let's say you want to sponsor. I'm just going to in fact, I want you guys to give me some ideas. Give me some ideas of what type of audience you want to go after. I'm just going to start off with one. Let's say registered nurses. And so what I want to do is I want to look up some websites that registered nurses like to frequent. And I can start building out a list of websites that I like. And guess what? Google can start matching up other websites that match that same kind of profile, that same kind of demographics, same kind of behavior of the users. And they can start building a target audience for you. And no matter where that target audience moves throughout the network, your ads have an ability to reach them. Now, let me go back to Robert's question here. He has a good question. He says, how do you avoid message overload when recruiting for open positions? Okay, so I'm going to use an example for you. Let's say we're all very hungry. Let's say we're all going to go to dinner. We're all extremely hungry. And we're starting to kick around places to eat. And let's say we all say, you know what, we really want to go get some barbecue. We're in Texas. We want to get some great barbecue. And as we're talking, all of a sudden we look at our phone and we're a little creeped out because all of a sudden we see an ad for a barbecue place. But anyway, let's say we look at that ad. Let me ask you something. Is that ad for that barbecue place, is that appropriate or is it annoying? I'm curious. What do you think about it? Let's say you went on your phone. Let's say you weren't just talking about it. Let's say you actually looked on your phone. You searched up an ad, or you searched up barbecue places in your area. And when you searched the barbecue places in your area, some things started coming up. And on the side, there's some ads that are going to help you save money on whatever place you're going to go to. How relevant is that ad to you? Let's say you still haven't decided, you guys are still kind of kicking around places, and while you're talking, you look at something else, and there's a pop-up on your phone whenever you went to Google or to YouTube because you wanted to see more about this certain barbecue place that someone suggested in the group, and an ad for another barbecue place comes up, and it looks like it's amazing too. Is that relevant for you? Was it too much? I'm curious. What are you thinking? Give me your thoughts. And I'm going to give a bigger example. Let's say you're looking for a car and you really love BMWs. You love BMWs. So you start looking up information on BMWs. Now, let's say you left the site, the BMW site, and you went to another site and you want to look up something else on a totally different plane, or perhaps you're on YouTube looking at something else about other vehicles. But then you get another ad that comes up for BMWs again. Now you're still really looking for a BMW. You still love BMWs, and you see an ad for a BMW. Is that too much for you? What if you got another ad that was similar to the BMW for another kind of car that's on the same level? Maybe if you're looking for a BMW 5 Series and all of a sudden and a Mercedes, an ad for the brand new Mercedes, it's roughly the same size as the 5 Series comes out, and they're showing you this ad for the Mercedes, and they're saying, hey, why don't you come give this thing a test drive? How would you feel about that? Would that be too much? I like to go back and forth. I really want to get your thoughts on this. Is it too much or is it just enough? Okay, now, Charlene says, very related, I think, to especially if it's a good place. Yes, right? So if it's a good place, of course. But just the fact that they hit you up again, did that bother you, or were you good with it? If it's a good, let's say it's a good place, I'm going to guess, because I haven't seen any other folks jump on yet, I'm going to guess that you're okay with it. Now, let's say you got the same ads the next day after you're already full, you don't want any more barbecue, and you keep getting ads for the barbecue places. Now, how do you feel about it? Do you feel the same way? Let me know in the comments. What do you guys think? So I like this question that Robert had. Okay, now, and I'm going to use the same example with the cars. Let's say after you already bought the BMW. Okay, you just bought it. In fact, you're washing it, and you're looking up some information on what type of application you should use to wash it, because you love your new BMW. But then all of a sudden you get ads to buy another brand new BMW. Are you as excited? Charlene says, not really. I agree. So, I know that was a long-winded answer, Robert, but here's how I feel. I think as long as they're looking or in the search mode for your product, as long as it's relevant to them, it's something that they would have an interest in. I think the relevance is good. That's why you want to use audiences. You don't necessarily want to go too far outside your audience. Another thing with audiences too that you can also gauge, and that the platforms gauge, is how relevant it is to them, right? So they're looking at trends. So have I been recently looking for jobs on job sites? If I have not, then maybe I'm falling out of that audience, especially if I haven't looked at job sites for, let's say, several weeks now. So how long I stay in that audience will depend on my activity on that site, therefore the relevance to me on that site. And so, you most likely, if you're doing the ads correctly, you're not going to be sending your ads to people who no longer have an interest. That's why I think that the practice of a lot of companies to take resumes, old resumes, and I used to do it as a recruiter. We would take old resumes off of a job board, and we would call those people. And it's a very, very low return on investment. The reason why is like 99% of the people who you're contacting are no longer in a job search, and they're not really that interested. So the return on investment is very low. So that's why we in this case, we discontinued that practice. We like to use the tools that are available with technology, because technology allows us to see who is actually interested and in a mode now versus whether they were in that mode a year ago, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 months ago. Does that make sense? So I think relevance has to do with your audience and how active they are looking for your product or service. Okay, so let me go back to what we're talking about. Is how to compare these different platforms. Now, one of the things about the Google YouTube platform, number one, is that you're going to reach more of your target audience, I don't care what it is, than pretty much any other site on the planet. You just have more access. And what you're doing when you do the Google Ads is essentially you're renting space. So it's similar to when you're driving down the road and you see a billboard. Okay, when you drive down the road and you see that billboard on the right-hand side, in the advertising world, that's called an impression. That's because you were able to see that there's an ad there. Now, you may not act on it, but you saw you had an opportunity to see an ad there. That's an impression, okay? With the Google world, what's beautiful about the impressions is that you can actually determine who sees it. So imagine if there was a billboard available, and I'm on the busiest highway in town. The only people who can see that billboard are people who I'm targeting. Everybody else can't see the billboard, and I'm only charged when someone who's relevant actually looks at my billboard. That billboard doesn't exist. There's no billboard that can do that. But guess what? Google can. And so can these other platforms. You can actually determine who will see your ad based on if they're in your target audience or not. Unless you set your parameters too broad, which I would never suggest to do that. You're just going to waste a lot of money. Okay, so that's what I love about Google is that you can basically reach not only Google but YouTube, and it's going to reach more people than anything else, all demographics, all ages, sizes, shapes, whatever. You're going to reach any kind of people you want to reach with that platform. Now, here's why I have LinkedIn second. I like LinkedIn a lot. Here's a big advantage of LinkedIn that you cannot do as well on the other platforms. On LinkedIn, you can target for things like their specific job title, their seniority with the job. You can target things like what type of company they work for, and perhaps, or what industry they're in, how large the company is. I mean, the level of how you can drill down to specific small audience is unparalleled across the other ones when it comes to their job. Okay. Now, Facebook is the most mature platform out there. I've been using their platform. I don't even know. It's got to be getting close to, I don't know, 6-7 years. And I'm telling you, they have the most mature platform. I don't use it as much recently because for searches we're working on, it's not quite as effective as some of the others. But I'm telling you, if you want to get folks' attention, you want to do some market testing, and you want to market test pretty cheap, Facebook could be the way to go, especially if you have a consumer-related product or service. Now, in recruiting, it depends on what position it is of what you can use Facebook for. For instance, if you want to reach a wide array of, let's say, nurses or clinical folks, Facebook could be a better way to go than, let's say, LinkedIn, especially if we're talking about bedside nurses. But if we're talking about executive positions, management positions, things where they have high level of education and all that, your LinkedIn is probably be a better way to go because you're going to be able to really drill down to certain people when you're doing your job searches for candidates. So, how do these differ when it comes to videos? Let's say you want to advertise your particular position or company or what have you, and you want to do it by videos. By the way, I just want to ask this. How many of you, whenever you see a video ad, you're more likely to look at that than if you saw, let's say, an article to read that's going to take 3 minutes? I'm curious. Which one? Would you rather watch a video that's about a minute or two long or read a kind of a long copy piece that's around 2 to 3 minutes? Which one would you do? I'm curious. Let me know in the comments. And I also have a question for you. Let's get this thing fun. Okay. I have a question for you here. If your safety was guaranteed and you could experience something considered very dangerous, what would you want to experience most of all? What would you try that you wouldn't normally try if you knew it was absolutely safe? What would you try? I'm curious. If your safety was guaranteed, this is just a hypothetical. Okay, so see, Robert, he says video. Charlene says video. Demi says video. So even if you're watching the replay on this, guys, let me know. I want to know what you're thinking. It's video. Our analytics, our analysis have told us that people want to see video. So exactly what you're saying is what we're seeing. Those campaigns I'm running right now, they have anywhere from a 76 to an 84% engagement ratio. That is through the roof. Okay. That's amazing. That means that literally means, and that shows your targeting is good too. That literally means that if we were driving down the freeway and you had your ad up, that means that over 3/4 of the people who see that ad take some type of action. That is incredible. Okay. Robert says, I'd talk to Elon Musk and catch a ride on a rocket. I like that. Charlene said she'd go skydiving. All right. So why did you pick that? Do you like the heights, Charlene? You like so if you like skydiving, you like things that are high? I'm a little scared of heights. And Robert, since you're willing to go out to the Mars, you must not be scared of heights either. So kudos to you guys. I love it. Okay. So let me talk about the difference in video. Since everybody's on the same page, we think video is the way to go. Let's talk about video on these three platforms. And by the way, when I say Facebook, I'm including IG or Instagram. Okay, I'm including the gram when I say Facebook, since they own it. Okay. All right. So these three platforms, if I'm doing a video campaign, if I don't know my audience very well yet, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the top one. So if you're starting out brand new, or let's say you're a recruiter, you got lots of experience as a recruiter, but you don't have as much experience advertising your jobs, I would suggest to start with Google YouTube. You guys say, well, why would you do that? Okay, here's a cool thing with video ads. With video ads, what you can do is you can run a campaign where you only pay for views, but if they watch the video for more than 30 seconds. Now, I want you to avoid a mistake that I made once. I thought I was a hot stuff because I did an ad and I had thousands of people that were engaging with my ad. They were watching it for a long period. Some of them were even clicking on the ads, but I was like, man, this is amazing. I'm just amazing at this. And I go to look to see where these clicks are coming from, where these views are coming from. Guess what? I was recruiting for nurses, and I was coming up on YouTube under nursery. So things like nursery rhymes, there was a nursery rhyme video that was my number one site where I was getting a lot of video views. It's when I guess before they were watching the nursery rhyme videos, they were watching the videos that I was putting out there, because I had one of my keywords was nurse, and so it picked up nursery, and so therefore I wasted a couple of grand on that. That was the last time I ever did that. Of course, I excluded them going forward. I realized there's a chance that some mothers could be watching it with their daughters or sons, but I think by far a majority of those people were probably kids looking at my ad, and they definitely can't take my job. So that's just a little lesson there. That's why audiences, I think, are more important than keywords. But even if you are using keywords or using your ads, they're getting in front of the wrong folks. You can do what they call exclusion, and you can exclude it. So what I did is anytime a YouTube channel had nursery in it or nursery rhymes, I was just kind of removing that from my search. There is a chance possibly that a nurse could look at it, but I would prefer them to look at other sites that are in the network, which is vast. Charlene says, I'm in the middle, but you love sky. I like the sky too. I'm just a little scared if I'm up there. So anyway, all right. So Google and YouTube, the key with them is you're gonna waste a lot less money unless you have a situation like what I mentioned. But in most cases, if you're dealing with adults, if you have a very specific niche you're going after and your content is directed towards that niche, if your person who's watching it isn't interested in that, they're not going to spend 30 seconds or more watching it. They're going to spend like maybe 3 seconds or 5 seconds at the most watching it, and then they're going to just click skip and move on. And I don't have to pay for that. If they watch it for 15 seconds, I don't have to pay for that either. If they decide they want to watch it for 25 seconds, I don't have to pay for that. Only if they watch it for 30 seconds or more, or if they click on their ad, do I have to pay. And that's called what they call CPV. CPV, all right? So when you see that, cost per view. So whenever they play your video to someone and they watch the video for more than 30 seconds, you pay for the ad, or if they click on it, then you do pay for that view. Now you can negotiate how much you want to pay for the view. So once you create your audience, and there's different ways to create an audience in Google. Maybe, in fact, put in the comments if in the future I should do a live on this on how you build an audience on an ad platform, because there is a nuance to that. Okay, so once you build your audience, what you can do is negotiate. Say, look, I'm only going to pay 5 cents a view. Or I'm only going to pay 10 cents a view or 15 cents a view. Whatever it is, you set the price of the most you're willing to pay. What you're going to do is that bid is going to go against everybody else's bid. And so every moment of the day when they're putting up ads, the system automatically goes out there and it says, okay, let's say with Charlene. Okay, Charlene says she's going to pay up to 5 cents. Oh, but Robert says he's going to pay up to 6 cents for this. And Demi, she's going to pay up to 8 cents for this. So we're going to actually show Demi's video instead of Charlene and Robert's. But let's say it gets in front of another person that has is in a slightly different mode that hits on Charlene's radar, where she's like, ooh, this is a good one. I'll pay up to 8 cents for that one. Whereas Demi's like, no, I'm only going to pay 4 cents for that one. Well, the computer figures all that out and it's going to give it to the highest bidder, okay? Even if you put, let's say, 8 cents per view, they're not going to charge you 8 cents if no one else is bidding up to that amount. So let's say the biggest bid they got was 2 cents. They're only going to charge you 2 cents for that. So don't worry about putting in and wondering if you're going to get the best deal. You're always going to get the best deal because it's all market-based. It's auction-based programmatic type advertising. So that's the wonderful thing about it. This is a much more efficient system than in the old days where the newspaper would charge you some arbitrary amount that they just think that their ad is worth, and they just charge you for it, right? It's kind of like with job postings where they work. Most job boards are starting to get privy that, or just they got it now. That what works better is to aggregate all the jobs and then pay for sponsorship. There's still a few ones out there, the association websites, some of the smaller sites, they charge you per job posting. And so it's just an arbitrary amount. They say, okay, you know what? We think it's worth X amount of dollars to post this on our site. Well, that's all fine and good, but what is it really worth? See, that's the wonderful thing about Google and YouTube. And also LinkedIn and Facebook, same thing. Is you're able to basically use an auction-based tool to make sure you always get the best deal whenever you're advertising. Does that make sense? Let me know if that makes sense in the comments. Oh yeah, Charles says, yes, please, audience building. Okay. Charlene says, we'd love to see that. Okay, so I'm going to make sure a future broadcast is going to be about how to build an audience on an ad platform. Now, each of them have the nuances. They're each a little bit different. So I'll probably have to spend a little time on each one, maybe like an overview, and then maybe I'll do a more in-depth one a little later. In fact, those of you who are recruiters, we have a new coaching program. We just started to release it, just putting some new courses out there. But you can look at your own time. Each of the lessons are about 10 minutes long. You can watch it and then move forward on whatever it is that we shared that day. And then also we have meetings throughout the month and the year to share with other recruiters in this recruiter coaching program to help to fill hard to fill jobs. Okay, so moving on. So this is my favorite. That's my jam. LinkedIn is also good. As I mentioned before, you can say, look, I want to do a cost per view type program, but I want to do it in a way where I only pay if they have certain positions. So let's use an example of a chief executive officer. Let's say I'm either recruiting for a chief executive officer or I'm trying to market to a chief executive officer. And I've got this great video. I think it's great. I got this great video. I'm going to use it. I'm going to promote my service or my job opportunity, whatever the case is. Well, what I can do is I can go on LinkedIn, excuse me. I can go on LinkedIn ad platform and say, look, I only want chief executive officers or presidents to see my videos. That's the only ones I'm going to pay for. I'm not going to pay for anybody else. I don't want to see it. I don't want anybody else to see it but them. And then you can go a step further from that. You can say, not only do I want just chief executive officers to see it, I only want chief executive officers that are in a specific industry. Let's say only in healthcare. I can go a step further and I can say, you know what? Not only do you need to be a chief executive officer, but they also need be in the healthcare industry, and they also need to work at a hospital or a place that has between 5 to 10,000 employees. That's pretty detailed, right? You can't do that. You can't do that with the conventional ads. Then you say, you know what? I'm going to go a step further. If that, in addition to all of that, they have to be in either Texas, California, or Florida. Did you know you can do that? Curious. Let me know in the comments. Did you know you can be that detailed on an ad platform as to who sees your ads? That's the difference between that and organic, guys. I love organic. Organic's really cool. I'm using organic now a lot. But that is just, to me, that is just amazing that I can be that focused and drilled. Let me know in the comments if that surprised you. Does that impress you? Do you like that feature? In fact, you can do that. So I can say, you know what? I only want to pay, using my prior example, I only want to pay 8 cents. That's the max I'm going to pay for each view. They have to be a chief executive officer. They have to be a chief executive officer in healthcare. It has to be at a company that has 5 to 10,000 employees, and they have to either be in Texas, California, or Florida. I mean, that is just, I love it. There's just no way you can tell me. There's no magazine or, I don't know, there's no ad thing that's going to be that focused. I'm paying for results. Now, if you don't know how good your video is, I say good. Not that I'm putting that in your video. But what I'm saying is the way you know if a video is good or not for your audience is, one, if they watch the video and they watch a good portion of it. That's number one. And then how many of them take a buying action after watching the video? So your percentages are going to vary depending on what kind of business you're in. In the recruiting business, I'm looking for somewhere, probably somewhere. It depends on how targeted the ad is, right? So if it's extremely targeted, then I expect that a higher percentage will make some kind of response. Also, if my target pool is very, very small, that will lower my response because less people qualify for the job. So it really depends. It could be like 0.5%. It could be 1%. I've had as high as 5 to 10%. Actually take a buying action. So you'll be able to tell based on your numbers. Don't get too caught up in production. Look at the numbers. Numbers don't lie. They will tell you how good your video is, how good it's resonating with your market. Now, another reason why a video may not perform well is not necessarily because the video wasn't good. It may be because you didn't target the audience correctly, or it may be that your offer is weak compared to other similar service offerings that are similar to your product or service in the minds of your consumer. So those could be other reasons. So this is just one thing you can check, but it's a good way to kind of see where you are, right? You start where you are. So we talked about Google, YouTube. That's the widest audience. You can reach more people, which is amazing, but you're not as easily able to identify people by things like job, function, where they work and all that. The reason why is this is designed to be almost like a passive resume database, if you will. Whereas Google, YouTube, they use it for a variety of reasons, and just kind of for privacy reasons, they don't allow you to really track it individually. And LinkedIn, to their credit, they do not let you individually target people, but they do let you target much more than, let's say, a Google, YouTube does in terms of like job function and where they're working, things of that nature. Facebook is similar to Google in that you're not able to drill down as much. So that is a little bit of a drawback. But what's really cool about Facebook and Instagram is you can start building an audience based on their interests. So it's based on less who they are, more so in. So depending on what your service is or what you're providing. So I'm just going to use an example of nurses because that's the field I'm in. But you can apply this to any field, right? So any kind of business that you're in, you can apply this to your business. So I'm going to use registered nurses, for example. So registered nurses, there are certain things that they're going to be interested in, right? Some of your registered nurses are going to be in things that have to do with the American Nurse Association. If they're in, let's say, psychiatric care, they may be interested in tools or resources that help those who are in psychiatric care. They may be in groups with other psychiatric nurses. So there may be some Facebook groups that I can target. It could be that they like or support certain causes that have to do with whatever practice that they're in. Things that are healthcare related. So I can start building this audience. And once I start building this audience, there's another feature that Facebook has. And actually, LinkedIn and Google also have the same feature. It's called similar audience or look-like audiences. So once you create an audience that's very good, now you don't know who these people are, but you know how they behave, right? And so once you get this audience that you're able to start targeting, now what you can do is create what they call a similar or a lookalike audience, which is a much larger group of people that are not in your original audience that look and behave like your original audience. So it takes the audience that you have that may only have 50,000 people in it, and now all of a sudden Facebook or LinkedIn or even Google or YouTube creates this much larger audience that may have 1 million people in it that now you're able to market to, or 300,000 or whatever the case is. And you can go by percentages. Like you can build your audience by 25%, 50%. There's different percentages you can grow your audience by. Does that make sense? Does that help? That you can actually get this very targeted. And if your ads start to work extremely well, you can scale by expanding that audience by using the technology within these platforms to grow your audience. Was that helpful? Okay, good. Hopefully it was. I'm looking for any questions. Does anybody have any questions about what I just talked about? And while you're thinking of your next question, I have a question for you. Would you rather, and you can use this for grandmother or grandfather, would you rather have your grandmother or your grandfather's first name or his or her haircut? If you had to choose, which one would you take? Would you take over their first name or their haircut? Let me know in the comments. I'm looking for a question before I wrap up. I'm going to wrap up because I got a hard stop here in about 5 minutes. So I just want to answer any questions you have about any of these platforms: Google, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Also, while I'm waiting for my next question, let me just talk about the personalities of some of these sites. Now, a lot of us are watching on LinkedIn. Most of my comments are coming from LinkedIn. So with LinkedIn, you guys already know this. It's much more of a professional site. So some of the things that you post here just don't do that well on Facebook and Instagram. So what you have to do when you do your ad campaigns is make sure that your ad campaigns match the feel, the personality of the platform that you're using. So Instagram is going to be more visual. You're going to have some visual aspects of the Facebook as well. But you're going to be a lot less formal with this. This is more informal in your personality than, let's say, with LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is becoming less and less formal than it used to be, but you're still going to have some issues with having the same level of performance in both platforms by using the same exact ad. You also may need to format your ad differently in terms of your video ads when it comes to the format size and things like that. For instance, for YouTube, you're gonna want to have the 16:9 widescreen type videos available. You're going to want to have captions. Definitely, you're going to want to have captions. And you can decide whether you're going to burn the caption in or what they call open captions, which all that means is they can't do the captions. You have them in your own font that you want and everything, and it shows up at the bottom or at the top of your video. Those are called burned-in captions. And so if someone's looking on their mobile phone, which 90% of the people will be looking on their mobile phone, they'll be able to clearly see your captions without having to fiddle around and see how to turn the captions on or off. It's there. But you're going to want to have a 16:9, but you're also going to want to have on this Google YouTube platform the square option available as well. The square option is the one where you have the title bar at the top, and then you have the captions at the bottom, and then the videos in the middle. The video is still in the 16:9 format, but it's encapsulated with a title bar and a caption bar at the bottom, so it ends up being a square video. Those square videos do on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook and Instagram right now. So you're going to want to have the square option on all of these, but particularly on the Google YouTube, you're going to need to also have the 16:9. I would also highly recommend to have it on the LinkedIn platform as well, because a lot of users still do use LinkedIn on their desktops. And on desktops, your 16:9 widescreen format videos look better. Also, we're noticing roughly anywhere from about 0 to 5% will actually watch your video ads on their big screen TV. So going back to my example, it's not going to look very good. It's not a good look if you have this big square video and they're watching like beautiful widescreen TV and you got this square video that comes up there. So allow the ad platform to use either your 16:9 or your square format videos. So when they're watching on the big screen, which guys, I don't know about you, I'm curious. Let me ask you guys. Any of you guys watch YouTube on your big screen, on your full screen TVs? I would like to know that right now. Please let me know in the comments if you watch any of your videos on a full screen TV, because we're noticing more and more are watching our recruiting ads on big screen TVs. So we are making sure that we still keep the 16:9 versions of our videos so that they look good in the frame. They look good on the widescreen. So you want to do that, and also on LinkedIn, they prefer playing the 16:9 version to their desktop users. So have both available, both the square format as well as the 16:9 format. IG, you definitely want to have the square. You can do the 16:9, but it just doesn't look very good. If you use Instagram, you know exactly what I mean. You're more used to either the full Instagram portrait style or at least a square. One of those two. Similar with Facebook, I would say that you would want to have either the square or the full style. A lot of people do not necessarily watch Facebook sideways on their phones. Tell me if you do. Tell me if you turn your phone sideways on Facebook. I'm curious. But because of that, I would suggest to have the square available here. You can have the 16:9. You can run some 16:9 campaigns, but I would say by far mobile usage is high. Roughly about 90+% on all these is going to be on mobile phones. Okay. So Demi says, neither, but I'll take the first name if those are the only options. Okay, she'll take the first name of her grandmother. And Charlene says both, but name first. She's going to go with the name over her grandmother's haircut. Okay, and then Charlene, she says rarely. Okay, but she does though. She says rarely, but she does. She does watch ads on her big screen. Demi says, I watch on the big screen, and my 6-year-old definitely watches YouTube on the big screen. You're great at knowledge sharing, Ross. Awesome insight and information as always. Thank you so much, Jimmy. Thanks for being here. Charlotte says, I would watch on my laptop for the larger ones. Okay, yeah. There you go. That's another example. See? So if you got a 16:9 version, Charlene's she's more likely to watch it. But if you got one of those little square ones that looks weird on a big screen, she's probably not going to watch it. So think about that, because what you want to do is you want to make sure that whatever you're using, whatever type of video you're using, matches the platform that you're advertising on. Thank you guys for all your participation today. You've been awesome. I love the energy that came from our group today. Those who are watching the replay, please put in your comments. I will be watching those later. Hope the sound was okay. Hope the video was okay and all that. Let me know what resonated with you the most. Please, if you don't mind, let me know. Last thing, in the comments, let me know what point you liked the most, and I'll make sure I keep that in mind the next time to incorporate that in my presentation. But anyway, thanks, and have a great rest of the day. Bye-bye for now. Make sure I don't cut myself off.